Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Brand Innovators and Cadent 2021 Virtual Upfront, Conversations on the Convergence of TV and Technology. My name is Lauren Kania, and I am a Vice President here at Brand Innovators. Today's program is brought to you by our partners, Cadent TV. Cadent is a wonderful partner to Brand Innovators, and we're so excited about the program they've put together for you today. So without further ado, I'm thrilled to bring to the stage our partner, Jim Tricarico. Jim is the Chief Revenue Officer at Cadent TV. Welcome to the stage, Jim. Hey, Jim.
Good morning, Lauren. How are you?
Oh, good. Good to see your smiling face.
Oh, geez. You know, listen, I will say I've been doing this a long time, and there's a couple of things that I know are the first. It's the first time I'm doing it in a Tommy Bahama shirt. Let me fix that. And it's the first time that I'm doing it in shorts, although you can't see my shorts. But it's weird, right, that we're doing it this way. But I will say that I'm really hoping that we will all see each other soon and live. And next year we'll be up on a stage and have everybody in front of us because I do miss all the human interaction. But thank you so much for Brand Innovators for helping us today to put this on. We're so excited, so much appreciated.
Yes, thank you, Jim. Good luck with the program today.
Thank you so much, Lauren. You know, I just wanted to say they gave me 3 minutes for my speech today. 3 minutes, like that puts so much stress on me. I haven't said 3 minutes in about 40 years, but I'm going to try my best to keep this thing to 3 minutes. And just to let you know, we are all so excited. And like I said before, I wish we were live and serving all of you guys a really crappy breakfast instead of being on the Zoom today. And I do pray someday soon we'll be all back together enjoying live interaction. You know, it's the best part of our business, right? The best part of our business is relationships. And I truly miss that. And I miss all my friends out there. And hopefully we'll all be together soon. But you know what? We're all in the middle of a historic moment in media history. We really are. The change from traditional media to OTT, CTV, digital, and social media. It's all in full motion. The pandemic has actually accelerated this movement. New streaming services are being launched, it seems like, every week. My favorite text, and I'm sure you're all the same, is when somebody recommends a new show to me. And the saddest day is when I end that show and I've been binge watching it for 3 days. So yes, even baby boomers like me have made the switch. These changes are also about to affect this year's Upfront, which will also be historic. Many of them for the wrong reasons. We will see rates of change that are going to be historically high. We're going to see networks try and tier or cap dollars from lower priced advertisers. We're also going to see networks try and push dollars from their linear to their digital and OTT platforms. We are even seeing networks take you back up the funnel and get clients to guarantee on 18 plus. I thought we were all driving down the funnel, but some of them are driving you back up the funnel. You know, I've been doing this a long time, right? And things usually change slowly in the linear TV marketplace. Not anymore. You know, in fact, my daughter, Kara, is on this call. And I just want to say I love you. That's really weird too, that I can do that, but I can. Wanted to tell my daughter I love her. So just think that 15 years ago, Kara was 12 years old and watching MTV and Nickelodeon while I was working for Nickelodeon. Now she is working at Viacom, CBS, and Nickelodeon. You know, it's kind of weird, like a little bit of a Lion King thing. I know 15 years is a long time, but it really goes by so fast. And I just wanted to say, just look at all the changes that have happened over those 15 years. Now we're seeing those changes happen every year. In fact, almost every month, as you look at cord cutting and viewing habits change. But don't be down, right? This is not a time to say, oh, bummer, you know. No, this is an evolution. This is exciting. This is historic. I may not be in the business in a couple of years when it all shakes out down the line, but I learn new things every day. It's incredible how much we've learned since we've been at Cadent. And just like the industry that's evolving, Cadent has evolved as well. I can't believe it, right? But I've been at Cadent for 7 years, and the change has been incredible. We built out our tech platform to bring greater scale to your campaigns over those 7 years. We've also built out our audience and measurement data to help be more targeted with your campaigns. We broadened our offerings to help bring you through the funnel, down the funnel, not up the funnel. Everything from our core cable, our broadcast, our ITV, our CTV, OTT, and our addressable offerings. We call this our fingers to fist power of Cadent. All of this is available through our unified platform, which makes buying Cadent easier and smarter. And it's an amazing platform. So as we head into the upfront, we want to take you back to college, just for a couple of minutes, not to the bars, to the classroom. And we want you to remember the 4 Ps. Do you remember the 4 Ps? Product, price, place, and promotion. Well, we got new 4 Ps, you know, and the first one is precision. Why precision? Because we still want to guarantee on 18 to 49, 25 to 54 on your demos. We also want to put data on top of your plans to optimize them and bring you down the funnel. Second, platform. I mentioned the great platforms we have across our addressable and linear businesses and OTT now. Price, you know, we've always been the leader in terms of efficiency to help bring down some of this inflation that you're seeing in the marketplace. And the 4th P is flexibility. That's right, with a PH. Why? Because we couldn't think of another word that started with P. So we came up with PH, flexibility, flexibility. Yeah, we are C students and can only think of 3. So that's got to be 3 minutes. So enough of me today. Today, we have an incredible group of today's most influential decision makers, including Group M, Initiative, Dentsu, Media Hub, Empower, 2nil, TCA, Horizon, and ESPN. One special shout out to Patrick Morrow from Wyden and Kennedy, who was supposed to be part of our panel today, but sadly got COVID last week. I'm glad to say he's feeling better. He's going to be back in the office soon, and we love you, bud. Second of all, I want to say one more thing. Rick Beisbell, my right hand, my right arm, my right everything, is granddad for the first time. His daughter had a baby last night. So we want to congratulate Rick Beisbell. Our moderator today is the famous and well-respected legend from Media Village and my friend, Jack Myers. So enjoy a short video, then sit back, enjoy Jack and the show. Then stay tuned after Jack for a fireside chat with Ina Kern of ESPN. Then a closing message from Nick Triano, our CEO. Thank you for everybody for all your support of Cadent. We love you all. Stay well and enjoy the show. See you, everybody.
Oh, thank you, dear.
Hi, I'm Jack Myers. Thanks, Jim. That's the longest 3 minutes I ever sat through, but we're happy to be here, and I'm happy to be here, and I'm also happy that I didn't get to see you in your shorts, Jim. I'm here today with Maureen Bassetti, Chief Investment Officer of Initiative, Gibbs Haljan, Total Investment Lead from Group M's Mindshare, Mike Law, President of Amplify USA, and Michael O'Connor, EVP Managing Director of Horizon Next. So welcome, and I'd ask you all to turn your video on, unmute yourself, and let's get started. We're going to grab that 5 minutes extra that Jim took from us. We're going to grab that back. Thanks, guys, for joining today. This is a really important upfront for all of us, for all of you. Last year, as we were moving into and through COVID-19, the pandemic that unfortunately we still are in so many ways, getting better, but still a major concern for your brands and your employees and team members and families. Last year, there was a coming together. The word was flexibility, and it was almost empathy last year. We were all in it together, the buyers, the sellers, the brands, the tech companies. We were moving forward together. And this year, the words that I'm hearing most are market correction. This is an inflection point. We're hearing 25 to 30% CPM increases on linear content. And we're also looking at changing faces, changing relationships. So what I'd really like to get started with is a real understanding of how are you and your clients looking at this up front? What's your view as we head closer toward it this year? And what are your priorities? And I'm going to ask you all, since we have limited time, don't wait for the question. You have something to say, jump in, and think of ourselves being like, up on a stage at the Marriott or the Hilton or one of the many places where we've been on stage together. So Maureen, let me start with you.
Okay. Hi, Jack. Thanks for having me. No, we're not at the Hilton. I'm in my 9-year-old son's bedroom where I've been for the last year, but happy to be here. Yeah, I think the marketplace is, as we've said many times before, it's increasingly complex in a world of fragmentation. The rating points in linear are down significantly, at least 15 to 20%. The streaming within those platforms has not made up for that fragmentation. And we're finding that the supply is outside of those sort of that ecosystem of broadcast. So our priorities right now are making sure that we are finding those areas of opportunity for the supply. I think while, yes, there's challenges in that space, the opportunities that we can find, whether it's in other OTT partners, online videos, social, influencers, actually, we find that the opportunities are great, right, to go and reach consumers in new and different platforms. So that part of it's really exciting. So I think while we can talk about a bit of the difficulty on one side, the other side is that it's just so much for us to go out there and buy and to connect with consumers in new and different ways. And actually, I would argue even in more impactful ways. So for us, it's really about finding those new opportunities, figuring out new ways to leverage our high value audiences and drive growth for our brands. And then also just leveraging new technology out there. So how do we really find new ways, again, to drive that deeper engagement beyond just broad reach? So again, there's lots of excitement. And I think we're just trying to navigate this complex marketplace that we're in and really figure out the best way to drive those connections.
So, the words you're saying are not much different than we've heard in the past. There's the buy side, there's the sell side. But what it often comes down to is what is the mindset of the client? Mindset drives 90% of decision making. Is the mindset changing, Mike?
Yeah, I think it is. I think, 14 months ago, we were on this.
Two mics. I'm sorry. We'll come to
you. I'm technically Mike.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I think 14 months ago, we were all feeling very ambitious about a, transformational type of change, and that there was a lot of motivation to do that. And then, of course, COVID came. And then I think consumers took over and they started to dictate and come and take a little control. And I think everybody started to realize that the changes that needed to happen in the marketplace. We, of course, like you said, took a step back. There was a lot of partnership. There was a lot of just helping businesses survive. And now we're back here again. And I do think that the opportunity that sits in front of us is great. Like, consumers have proven they want great content. I think our advertisers and our brands are recognizing that there are a lot of changes happening in the market, and that it really, almost in a way, like hit them smack in the face. They experienced it themselves right in front of their faces and their families in the way that things change. So yeah, I think clients are definitely motivated. I think they're being held to more performance driven metrics. So we need to focus more on business outcomes. I mean, branding is like it's a nice to have these days, because every dollar they spend has to be so impactful. So we need to use the data and tech that we have in the marketplace.
So in that context, Mike O'Connor, do you see this as an inflection point in terms of change, with clients being more receptive to moving inventory away from linear and more into let's call it non-major player alternatives?
Yeah, I think, over the last couple of years, I think we've done a lot of educating ourselves and our clients in terms of kind of the shifts in consumer behavior and where viewership is going. Mike touched on the idea of, people are leaning more on performance-based metrics, which, from where I sit, part of my role is on the performance marketing side. And I've seen that as a huge benefit. Brands like Peloton and Smile Direct Club, who have access to sales data in real time, we've actually seen that these channels perform better than linear TV. So I think being able to drill down and look at some of those metrics enables us to push a little harder into those areas. Yeah.
Good. So Gibbs, rather than following up on that, I want to ask a different question. In the last couple of days, there have been some announcements coming out of Group M about kind of a refocusing of some of the media buying strategies, more focus on some DEI-related relationships, announcing a relationship with Ozzy. How does that impact on your day-to-day as you look at the upfront?
I mean, I think it impacts it in lots of different ways. The day-to-day, we've always been looking at that. I think the difference is now that we're publicizing it, and I think it's about creating opportunities to support new storytellers, new opportunities in the marketplace. I think that you've talked about sort of an inflection point, and I think we are at an inflection point, but I think it's about entirely changing the model. The value proposition of a lot of platforms is not the same as it once was. And clients have realized that, agencies have realized that, and we're trying to pivot to change all of those different metrics and things like that. Just spending more for less, if the average Prime rating is under a 1 at this point in time, what am I really getting? And how do I manage excessive frequency? I think we need to take it a step further and really drill into effectiveness and what is the value proposition of each individual impression. I agree that performance is important, but without brand preference, there is no performance. You need to understand. So it's like, where is that model and how do you build those equations? I mean, I think, look, we're all looking for, the best piece of value and opportunity from a client standpoint. You look at, Kong and Godzilla, how that did this weekend. People are trying to get back to cinema and go. Cinema is actually growing or potentially growing versus the last year versus prime time where it's shrinking. So I think there are lots of opportunities in the marketplace. Mm-hmm. Finding those and changing the conversation with clients to really talk about the value versus where I need to be.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say, we talk a lot about fragmentation, and to Gibbs' point about looking at cinema, I think as as the world becomes more fragmented, you have to look a little deeper, and you can't rely on the same kind of, you need to go beyond the standard set of kind of consideration. I think there is a ton of opportunity out there. So,
I'm going to try to, I'm listening to the words, and I'm thinking now, if Linda, Rita, Joanne, Donna, Rob, if the different players are here listening, and their response is, yeah, I'm hearing all that, but we have all those opportunities within our own family. And if you want your piece of the linear and especially the live linear, the sports and the other assets. And if your clients want those, then you're going to have to buy our digital, and you're going to have to move down, and you're going to have to pay our CPM. And historically, they'd be right. So go ahead, Gibbs.
What I would argue is that you can build a significant replacement across the board. I mean, you can utilize Cadent to replicate all of the Disney cable networks and get, the same content and everything else. So there are opportunities to do that. I think, yes, can we try to make it work? Yes. Can we try to figure it out? Absolutely. Are we going to? Yes. But I think that the onus then also comes to them to help us with different replacement options and to actually push measurement further. And I'm not talking about Nielsen measurement, but I'm talking about how do I measure or manage frequency across, Disney as well as Hulu? How do I do that across their ABC FEP as well as Hulu inventory? And those are things that are really important, because it's not just about giving them more money, but it's also about providing solutions across the board. And that's not a unique Disney thing. It's sort of across the entire ecosystem.
Is it fair to say that Gibbs' comments, you would feel the same way, Maureen, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Go ahead, Maureen.
Go ahead, Maureen.
Yeah, listen, I think the reality is we are going to work with all those partners, but you can't reaggregate the scale that we used to have. You can't. So we are buying all of the digital or the social, but you can't reaggregate it in that ecosystem. So you have to go outside of it in order to get back to the reach. And to Gibbs's point, we're over frequency, right? Like, and some clients like that. Most clients, though, it's about incremental reach. And the only way we can get that is to go outside that ecosystem. So we are going to work with the partners on the assets that they have. We are going to work within that, but we'll never get back to the reach that it used to be. So I think that that's just the reality that we're in, but we are willing to work with them across there. We want to reach by their content wherever it lives. That is the intention. But we do want to make sure that we're managing the investments carefully because of the limitations that there is within the scale. And that's just the reality of it.
I think, Jack, that just the legitimacy of the competition has changed. There is so many more partners that we can work with that have proven to be effective. So yes, TV still works, right? There's still a portion of it. There's a lot of value in it. We're not walking away from TV, but I also think everybody thinks what TV is so different today. To Jim's point in the opening, like the way his daughter watches TV, the way my daughter watches TV is far different than the way that we grew up. So I just think there is so much more opportunity. The competitive set has changed, and the value that we place, it can't be based on what the value was 10 years ago. I think we chatted about this when we were prepping, like the American Idol story is a good one, right? Like for years, we just kept paying the increase and then realized, wait, well, now it only does a 2 rating when it used to do a 20. So we have to revalue that. And I think that's an important part of this year's negotiations.
And as we shift, go ahead, Mike, go ahead.
When you think about American Idol, it does a 2 rating on the linear portion, but there's so many viewers outside of that linear when you go beyond just kind of, days 4 to 28 or whatever it is.
Let's shift a little bit to the dollars you have available this year. Now, we know that the dollars are more than 2020. The question is, are we looking at the same kind of budgets available to you as 2019, or do you see growth in the market if we just use an apples to apples 2019 versus 2021? And I'm not just talking about the upfront, I'm talking more about calendar year and full year budget availability. Are we looking at a static? Are we looking at growth coming from the scatter into the upfront, or do you envision a growth market versus 2019?
I think it is potentially up a little bit. Obviously, from a Group M standpoint, we've published what our reports are. Magna and IPG have published what their reports are. So, I think we're all safe to say. I think the challenge is, what does that mean? Because as we're talking about what is a video marketplace, there is the video marketplace. That doesn't mean it's all going to TV. It could be going to YouTube. It could be going to Unwired. It could be going back to local. Local provides a great opportunity where you're not seeing the same sort of linear ratings erosion as you are on a national scale. Social video, there are tons of different platforms and looking at different ways to drive effectiveness. goes. You talk about, the streaming services and things like that. It also depends on the category. So if you look at a category like pharma, pharma has little opportunity in some of the streaming services because of the long form creative, like, where you change the consumer experience to have fewer minutes per hour and shorter breaks means it's harder to then cram a 90-second commercial. And it also depends on what their content strategy is and how they're building their breaks. So it is a mixed bag, but I think it's safe to say that not every platform will be getting the same amount of money as year ago.
And as you look, let's say, out to 2023, 2024, from an addressable OTT point of view, let's focus in on addressability. We're on a scale of 1 to 10, let's say in 2024, we're at a 8 or a 9. Where are we today? Are we at 7? Are we at 3 in terms of the opportunity that you have to use addressable as a solution for your plans?
Addressable TV, or
Yeah.
you mean
Addressable TV?
probably a 5, maybe.
I was going to say under 5.
Yeah, maybe.
All right.
I think you have to look at it not necessarily as addressable TV and set-top box VOD, but as
Right.
sort of digital and OTT. So Roku, Trade Desk,
Right.
Samsung, Vizio, any one of the OTT partners, Amazon, IMDb, like everything and anything, even as far as YouTube from a connected TV standpoint. I think the value proposition is about serving impressions to people who are receptive at that point in time. And, in a leaned in experience, they're far more engaged versus, being sitting back watching, something that is being sent to me versus something I chose to watch.
Yeah.
And, we are migrating to that world. And so that's going to be, where the future is across the board.
And you each have your data groups. Go ahead, Maureen, and then I'll come back with a question about data.
I was just going to say, for us, addressability is about our high value audiences, and we're using addressability in the digital way, right? Because we're using television for most clients for broad reach. And so we do have pockets of addressability there, but we use addressability and we're using audiences in all of those other places. So that's why, like, addressability has already happened. It's, yes, there might be opportunities for TV, but really it's in the digital world, and which is where we've already been doing that for years and where we'll continue to. But I think it's really using that more within an OTT space is where we're seeing the bigger opportunity.
And
I would just add, I think, platforms like Dish with their Reach Booster product help us expand reach in a different way. So, it's true that reach quickly is more challenging, but I think addressability, even from a linear perspective, gives us the opportunity to expand reach in a way that is different than it has been in the past.
And where are your organizations in terms of moving from traditional demographics and buying metrics to performance-based, as well as toward the 18 plus total audience? And how much change can we expect to see in how research is used and what research providers are being used? Maureen, anyone want to take that?
We've already been, obviously IPG acquired Axiom. So we did that several years ago. So obviously we did that so we could own the data and we could build out our high value audiences and then be able to transact on those audiences in an end-to-end fashion and then measure them and repeat, right? So we're already on that track, and we've been on that track for years, doing it across all channels in television too, buying against, again, high value audiences. So I think we'll continue to use those high value audiences to buy against and expand them even deeper as we move forward. But for us, it's really about then how do we really measure the impact of that? Are they is in television's buying a high value audience more impactful than buying 18 to 49? And is that really working when it comes to business performance? So I think that's an area that we'll continue to expand upon in this coming upfront. But I think that's just been a key part of our strategy for years and will continue to be. And then I think on the demo part, I think it's something obviously we are exploring where it makes sense to switch into broader demos with maybe advanced targeting on top of that. So I think that will become a bigger part of the conversation, especially in a world where supply is very limited. How do we really open up that lens of supply and using those broader audiences in which to do it? So I think it will be a part of the conversation. I can't tell you right now if that's going to be 75% of the conversation, will be 20% of the conversation. I think we're still working through the analysis on that, but certainly shifting into high value audiences is where we've been and where we'll continue to go.
Thanks, Maureen. And last final words, Mike O'Connor.
No, I guess just to build on what Maureen said, you know, when you think about where a lot of the growth in spend in the marketplace is coming from, it's from more performance-driven marketers, whether it, you know, D2C clients streaming. And I think that those guys are, you know, not necessarily as tethered to the past in terms of metrics, and will be looking at performance differently. So I think
Thanks for being here. Mike Law, final words.
Yeah, I just think we have to really challenge ourselves this year. I think we've had a lot of opportunity during the last 12 months to test some different things. I think we've experimented with new currencies, new targeting, and I really believe they're scalable and using different platforms to help execute off of data, whether it's Merkle for us or Axiom or whoever it might be for the other agencies. I just think there's so much opportunity to have a really transformational marketplace this year.
Thank you. Mike Gibbs, final words.
Yeah, I mean, you know, look, I don't want to sound like a broken record, so if I do, I apologize. But I think it really, you know, as with every marketplace, it's really about the value exchange. And it's about what's important to us and our clients and what's important to the networks. We will always find middle ground to work through that. But I think at the end of the day, those value equations are changing at a much faster pace than they have been in the past. You know, how much of it is about audience versus how much is it about context? Where do those places fit together? You know, you've seen it with big events and things like that, not performing the way they have. But again, you know, if we can find middle ground and drive value, that needs to be the equation. Not about price, not about CPM, but it's about who's my audience, where am I finding them, and what's the value exchange for them.
And before we move to our next conversation, I'd like you to give me a thumbs up. We're past the inflection point. Flat, we're at the inflection point. We're still not at the inflection point. Each of you give me thumbs up, thumbs flat, thumbs down, inflection point. Thumbs up, thumbs up. We're past the inflection point. We're in the next 30 years after a 30-year transformation that started with the Internet Mosaic browser in 1993. Gibbs, Maureen, Mike, thank you so much. And on behalf of Cadent, I know they're very appreciative of your taking this time, as is the industry, for the work and the leadership that you've always shown. So thanks for being here today, and stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Jack.
Thanks.
So as we transition to our next conversation, I want to remind everyone that you can tell your colleagues this is being live streamed at Media Village, mediavillage.com. You're welcome to head over there or tell your colleagues if they're not registered and you'd like to have them join for the rest of today's events, please do so. So I'd like to bring on the rest of the panelists as we do that. I'd also just like to acknowledge and thank Cadent for allowing me the opportunity to host. This is something I've been doing for more than 2 decades, and I miss the opportunity to hear from my friends and colleagues about the focus as we're heading toward the new Upfront. So I am looking to introduce and welcome Carrie Drinkwater, Executive Director, Investment Activation for Media Hub Global, Kathy Schaffner, Chief Investment Officer of Empower, Mark Zamuner, Chief Executive Officer of 2NIL Holdings, and Amy Smith, Executive Media Director of TCA, which will be our next conversation as soon as we have the new group coming on board. So I'll look to my brand innovators team to do that. I'll also say that, you know, we've had a major transition in the last year, much of it COVID-led, but also we were talking about the inflection point, up or down. And there are several people, you know, who in the past might have been sitting on this panel who have retired. Andy Donchin, Harry Keeshan just recently, John Miles, Chris Geraci, not all necessarily retiring, but moving from the roles and responsibilities they've had in the past. So let's bring on Amy. If we can ask our panel to turn on their video and turn on their audio. Hi there, Amy. It's good to see you.
Hi, Jack.
Hi. We're looking for Kathy, Carrie, and Mark. Here's Mark coming in. So, hey, Mark. Mark, I was doing a little homework on your company. I was not familiar with 2NIL Holdings. Can you just give us a brief, 1 minute synopsis on the work you're doing?
Sure. So started the company in 2011, and our focus has really been helping a lot of direct consumer brands with their growth strategy. And so whether that's brand strategy, marketing strategy, media activation, or kind of deep analytics, custom models, that's the work that we've been providing for the last decade.
Great. And Amy, I know many in the audience today are familiar with you from your years at ICOF, but tell us a little about TCA.
Yeah, so TCA, much like what Mark is saying, is really focused on that performance, data-driven acquisitions with our clients. So really bringing those direct to consumers to the marketplace. We are a sister company to Cadent. TCA is Jacksonville based in Florida.
Got it. Where in Florida?
Jacksonville.
Okay. You're not on the beaches of Miami with the college students.
No.
So, hi, Carrie Drinkwater has joined, and we're looking for Kathy Schaffner. Carrie, you're a Media Hub has been close in many ways to a lot of the media companies, and you bring a unique perspective on the CTV side of the business. So can you get us started as we look forward to Kathy joining as well, and just share a bit about your perspective on the state of the industry today as it relates to the transfer that we just heard about in the last panel from linear to CTV, OTV, addressable, and digital alternatives?
Sure. Sorry, I was the only one with the background on, so I wasn't sure. I wanted to make sure I was aligned with the fellow panelists. No, I thought the last panel was great. I obviously have a lot of respect and a lot of friendships with that previous panel, so it was great to hear. And I echo the sentiment, which may be a little bit boring, but I do think we are being forced and encouraged to have this shift. And we're being forced due to the supply that was just talked about in the diminished erosion. And we're being encouraged because of the opportunity. So there's tremendous opportunity with data and content that's available through CTV and OTT. And we're being forced to take a look at that and think about it and recommend it and really understand it, given what's happening in the linear space.
And Mark, as you're consulting with your clients, are they ready for, we heard thumbs up on we're past the inflection point. The clients are ready to move these dollars away from the traditional, buy plan legacy models. Are they ready? Are the clients really ready, or do they still need some convincing?
No, clients are ready. I think one thing is, customers are inherently smart, right? So I think in their own lives, they see their own experiences, they understand consumer trends and data very well. I think where we discuss with them some of the challenges, right? There's a $12 billion market that's going to be growing by leaps and bounds over the next 3 to 5 years. A third of households have cut the cord, right? A majority of households have some connected TV or smart TV way to stream. But at the same time, there's a high cost in the infrastructure and the targeting. So when 40% of dollars really are not working media dollars, and there's 10 to 15% of ad fraud in this ecosystem, you really have to be smart in terms of how you structure, how you test, how you measure to ensure that you're getting the return that you want from the ability to kind of enhance targeting. So that's a little bit of the dynamic map that we kind of work with our customers to understand and try to play through.
And as you look at, oh, there you are, Kathy. I was just going to email you back saying, where are you?
I'll log back in. Hello, everyone.
Yeah, good. You started the Upfront, so you weren't here because you're already doing some deals. But thank you. One of the things that I was really fascinated. You said when we were having our prep call, and Kathy and Kerry really doubled down on this idea of not giving in to the fear, not giving in to the high pressure from the legacy networks to get those high CPMs. Kathy, let's start with you, but I'd like to, have you just talk to that perception that there's that they're imposing fear. If you're not there, then what? So what's your response?
Yeah, so, we are really fortunate because our industry was given this violent shove forward that we needed, over the past year to, allow sell side and buy side to really come together to change how we, plan, buy, and sell media. And, I was really looking forward to this upfront and the exciting times of being able to expand upon how the consumers are, using video as a whole. But what I'm seeing, or what we're seeing, is that we're kind of at an inflection point where publishers are, I don't want to say they're creating fear, but they are using what's happening with TV declining ratings and what's happening with, inventory sellout to really kind of, go back to the way things used to be, meaning place a lot of dollars in the upfront, lock in early to prevent being shut out, getting guarantees, and to mitigate these high price increases. And so, what we're urging our brands to do is resist the urge or resist the fear to go back to the way things were a year ago, and realize that we have a great opportunity to expand how we are purchasing video, just as consumers are expanding away from the living room and how they're consuming video. And so I think that we just have to be very careful that we don't fall back into the old stigma of got to get in early, got to lay down a lot of dollars, got to lock myself up with limited flexibility, because we really have a lot more opportunity to take advantage of that giant shove forward we've had with the events of the past year.
So I want to give each of you the opportunity to respond to that idea that we're not going to give in necessarily to that push forward, that if we're not there, but recognizing the limitations on a lot of the valuable inventory. What choice do you have other than to pay the CPMs? If the networks stand firm in their pricing, broadcast, cable, for their best inventory, and you need that inventory, how do you not fall back into that same pattern? Amy, do you want to tackle that? And then Kerry, and then Mark can speak to it.
Sure. Thanks, Jack. I think you really have to go in with a blended approach. So you really need a combination of, some guaranteed, but you really need to have that flexibility. You need to have your investment where it's working for you and where you can continue to have that working for you. What we need to do right now is really navigate the streaming landscape, based on the audience behavior and consumption. Our marketers' goals are customer acquisition. That's our job, in the industry, is to help them with that. They have to drive growth. So, we can get them more scale, more growth as we do get the cord cutters, the cord nevers, within the OTT space. We're getting that omni-channel exposure and reach. And now that, 25% of the TV viewing, is spent with streaming, we really do need more opportunities, that are created for consumers, for marketers, for us to really, continue to be and push out on this space.
Okay.
I think a really exciting thing is, the Loop Me study that came out a few weeks ago showing, 85% of the study showed, people are willing, they want to support ad-supported streaming. I think that's great for all of us.
So, I can jump in. So look, I think there are clients, and we have clients, and TV works. It really works. And there may be erosion, but the screen on the wall and the experience works. And if you need to get your money there and there is a limited supply, the economics work, supply and demand. So that will happen. But I think what has to change is the conversation about what you're guaranteeing on. What are the audiences? Where will that content be seen? Will it be fluid? Will it be HVAs? That will be how it shifts. I mean, I do not see, given that there's such limited supply and the demand is not following, I don't see the hurry up and let's get your money down. I don't see that changing, because we saw what happened was, if you look at scatter and all these historical things that have been happening for years and years and years since we've been in the business, that hasn't changed. If you don't put your money down the upfront and you want to go and scatter and buy linear, now again, there is wonderful opportunity with data and alternative and other things that you could be doing. But if you want linear or the broadcast networks and what they sell, and there's more money chasing than what's available, that will happen. We just need to change the conversation on how we make that value proposition work for our clients. And is it about a different audience? We talked in our prep about business results guarantee. That has to change. And I think that most media partners are willing to have those conversations, because it isn't about, we're going to get all the money in and just do what we can. Yes, they want to monetize it, but it has to make sense for clients and for agencies as well.
Mark, you have anything to add there? Or
I mean, not much. I think they all covered it very eloquently. In general, though, it's you're managing a portfolio, right? And so there are times where you have to invest for the long term. And if that warrants an upfront investment, because you look to the future and say, okay, I know I have opportunities that I can invest in opportunistically, but there's some inventory that I want to secure, that's okay. But I think the team did a great job of really articulating all those points.
So as you know, the Myers report for 4 decades now has been assessing market perceptions, agency and advertiser perceptions of media sellers. This year, our survey was completed just a couple of months ago. And what we found in terms of this inflection point model, a complete new generation, first of all, of respondents that we hadn't seen before, younger, more diverse, and a 40% turnover in the younger team members who are much more data-centric, the new generation, much more data-centric, and they're the ones who are feeding up the data to support your work and the work of your colleagues who were on the previous conversation. And what we saw is much more knowledge about and commitment to and belief that they're getting the best support and tools from companies like Samsung Ads, Samba TV, Inscape, Simul Media, and Cadent, and others that are, in the past would have been relegated to the, kind of also where we're looking at. Now they're leading the industry, and you have Amazon in the mix, you have Walmart Media, you have Roundel Media reimagined by Target, Kohl's, Kroger's. This really speaks in many ways to the performance marketing that you're so close to. So as you look at these new players in the market, is what I'm seeing in the research, which is kind of a shift to them as being primary providers, a reality? Or is that something that just showed up because we're talking to the younger team members?
I mean, I'd say it's growing, right? I think anytime folks have a chance to put fingers on keyboards and access data, access planning, access audience insights, and access what might have taken a planner a couple of runs to do on a reach and frequency, et cetera. Like, that is powerful, right? That generates efficiency, that generates insight. It allows knowledge workers to actually bring their IP and strategy in a consultative way to their customers. So that shift is real because it's empowering, and it should be embraced.
Yeah, and that shift is real, and it needs to be embraced as part of a holistic strategy. And I think that's the key, is helping marketers understand it's not an either or, but it's an all-in, strategy. We have to think about that.
I would agree with that. We really do need that holistic planning. We need to bring in the publications, and use their value props. There's publications that drive the upper funnel, and there's publications that drive the lower funnel. We need them all.
One of the words that I haven't heard that I would have expected is attribution. So where are we on the spectrum of attribution being a primary driver of value?
Hi. I mean, that's all we're talking about. And there's models, and it's at the end of the day, attribution really will tell you where your business, where your money needs to go. And so attribution will be our media mix modeling. It will be our true north of how we move forward. And attribution is fantastic. And from your previous questions, that allows you the attribution that you need, that you cannot get. You can't get that same attribution from, these digital first properties that have data at the core. So I think attribution is going to be important, but again, it's how you're met. What are you attributing? What is the attribution? Is it brand awareness? Is it search? Is it foot traffic? We talked about this being a very client-centric data strategy, and every client needs to understand what they're trying to achieve and what the attribution will help that, what attribution models will help them get there.
And I would say too that, the connected TV is only as good as that measurement and attribution. So there's really no one size that fits all. We wouldn't have this conversation today if there was. Marketers are demanding that video investment to be measured more like digital. And I do think, kind of to your point, Carrie, depending on what some of those goals are, that is the pain point we all share with that cross-channel measurement. But, I think we're closing the gap on that. We're now looking at smart TV data sets, where we've got 15 million and growing, where we, had panels, before in the thousands. So I think we're making, good climbs there.
Yeah, and I think making advancements on how to tackle that attribution, when you think about, as we make the shift into more streaming services, and the streaming services from some of these major video media companies are becoming some of the latest walled gardens on the scene. And we have to start thinking about how that attribution plays in that realm. That's going to be a key driver in how we place our dollars going forward in the upfront and beyond.
The walled garden conversation is really important one as you look at the success that Google, of course, Facebook, and now Amazon have, and Target and Walmart coming right after them with their own data that they're looking at. And you see NBCU, Disney, to all the networks really saying, but we have our own walled garden and trying to compete with Facebook. Can the television networks, can the television industry compete with Facebook and Google in that walled garden environment? Is it valuable to have more walled gardens, or is it the idea to break down the walled gardens and to have a standardized set of metrics across the TV and beyond to the media industry?
So walled gardens are going to create incrementality tax in terms of frequency and breaking the ability to understand frequency of messaging to consumers. So, the reality is that walled gardens actually aren't accretive to advertisers. They're accretive to the publishers that create those walled gardens. And it goes back to the question about attribution. Just attribution is a practice. I think that's what most people probably get wrong in their desire to look at measurement and attribution, is they don't take it as an ongoing continuum that has both meta level and channel level distinctions. So, there's a benefit in having some walled gardens to look at what's happening within that ecosystem in a discrete way that can inform modeling. But I don't think the networks would do well to embrace a walled garden approach.
Yeah, and from a brand standpoint, I think the key focus is going to be able to adapt to the walled gardens that exist and that are coming about, is to really build up the depth and breadth of all the first party assets that they have, because that's going to be key. And when you think about like the midterm future, so call it the next 2 to 5 years, it's going to be very complex as we as advertisers help orchestrate all that first party data across all of the walled gardens, whether they be existing digital walled gardens or the new ones that are coming from streaming services and major video companies. How are we going to send in the anonymized data and understand what's happening within each of those walled gardens, and are we getting the attribution on that backside to the measurement that we're looking for? And that's going to lead to performance-based guarantees and being able to understand how we're spending our dollars within each one.
So when we had our call last week, and I said, what else are you doing beyond preparing for the upfront? What else is motivating you? What's exciting you in your work today? And I was excited by the response you gave. And Kathy, maybe you and can start with that. I'm eager to hear that perspective because we only touched on it last time.
Yeah, sure. So what we talked about when we were together, I think Carrie, Amy, and Mark and all this, we're talking about the DE&I initiatives that our companies are doing and how critical that's going to be in the advertising investments for our companies going forward. It's something that has always been occurring, but just with a new focus on how we focus on minority media, how we make sure that we are focusing on minority media consumption habits, where our dollars are being placed, how we are leveraging just a total diversity, equity, and inclusion strategy in all of our media plans. Having just a greater focus on that, a greater focus on the research, greater focus on establishing partnerships with minority-owned properties, more than just minority-owned targeting, is going to be a big focus as we place media dollars for our clients this year. And again, a focus we've had, but just now a focus that we are being more outwardly spoken about.
And then I think with the I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Amy.
I was just to say, I think with the technology advances and, and the boom that we're seeing with the streaming, it really lends well to this effort, right? So we're targeting at a household level, we're going after those key segments where we're seeing high returns, and this is really a good blend, a good timing where we really can use the assets we have, to really help, get that message out there that we need.
And I would say a complete different lens, and I agree with what was said, but I think also who we are, how we operate, how we hire, how we train, how we recruit. At the beginning of COVID, you look at your screen on your Zoom box and everybody looked the same. And it took, the world to, the country changed in May. And I think that's been a great wake up to all of us. We do not reflect what the country looks like. And if we're buying media and investing media, we need to be able to represent in a better way. So and I think we talked about this. I think all companies are starting to really take a look, and we've changed a lot of practices that we have internally, and we've created groups for people, and it's been very empowering. And again, yes, diverse media and diverse owned media has to be part of the conversation, and having events and allowing them a platform in front of clients or in front of media, because a budget of, that might not be a lot to a big player can change a trajectory of some of these companies. So it's incumbent upon all of us to take on more social responsibility.
Yes, agree.
And, to reinforce that point, advancingdiversity.org and Media Village do an annual diversity census. And in the past year, the percentage of young team members in the business, one or fewer than 2 years, has grown to 24%, being people of color. And the majority of that, which is a shift also, are Black. So there's the industry, and that's among advertiser and agency companies. The perspective there, as I said in the earlier panel, is there's a shift in the younger generation who are heavily weighted toward the data providers and also the influencers. It's incumbent on our industry to support, to retain them, to make them feel as if they belong, and also to see that their viewing patterns, their media patterns, their behavior patterns are reflected in the media buys that they're contributing to the plans for. So I think our industry is undergoing a major transformation and shift, and that does reflect in the actual buying. I'm not sure, though, that it's reflected in the negotiation process. And so how do you, when it goes up to the senior level connectors who remain, as we've seen on these two panels, there's still a need for more diversity at the more senior level. So as you look at those challenges, and I know I've taken it off where Jimmy Tricarico and Rick and Nick and others are saying, wait a second, but I think they're on board with this conversation as well. because it's an important one. How do we make sure that you, in your buying, are reflecting the new generation of consumers and the changes taking place in society and culture, and that our industry reflects that in this upfront?
Well, I'll start with that one. I know it sounds really simple to say this, but it really just starts with now having the ability and awareness to have the greater conversation. And I know at Empower, we're participating in and leading roundtables with heads of, our vendor partners and working to establish partnerships with them so that we can take this all the way up, Jack, to your point, to the negotiation level. So I mean, while it sounds simplistic and form, just having the conversation, having the awareness, establishing the partnerships, really updating, internal tools and the way we think about going to market is just going to broaden that conversation.
Yeah, and I think education, right? Like, first of all, we have never had this conversation in these panels, and educating ourselves and being open to learning. 18, I think under 18-year-olds, white people under 18 are the minority. So, it's changed, it's understanding and having a better sort of appreciation for what we don't know and what we haven't done in the past, and wanting to be better and wanting to learn more, and empowering the people that we work with and bring in people to work with us that will make us smarter and better.
The word education being a critical one at Media Village. Online learning is our focus, because we need to develop better learning tools for those joining us and to attract those to our industry. So thank you for those comments. Final words on any topic, Mark?
Final words, just in terms of DEI, I mean, we have to be intentional. And when we think about developing leadership and making sure that people of color have those opportunities and being able to dedicate time, intentful time, to have that meaningful impact, I think is critical. And I also think it's critical that we think about DEI in a broader scope than just targeting. Right? Because the last thing we want to do is create more silos in this world. I think we have enough of those. And so being intentional about the messaging and having inclusive and equitable and diverse messaging, even in broader buys, is pretty incumbent on us as stewards of this industry to ensure.
Thank you. Amy, final words, any topic?
Any topic. I just think overall, we need the flexibility, right? So DE&I, it is that overall awareness, education, targeting, messaging, but overall, I think we just have to remember flexibility, right? So agencies, data partners, the platforms, we all have to work together. We have to service our marketers. We have to get them acquisition.
Thank you. Kathy, final words.
Sure. So, I love what Amy said. I'm gonna continue to just champion that education, targeting, awareness. Whether you're talking about DE&I or you're talking about the challenges brands are facing with video allocations in their media upfronts, they're all going to become critically important. And just challenging ourselves to think holistically, whether it be in our DE&I initiatives or holistically in our video approach when we go to market, is going to be key.
And Carrie, final words.
Oh, such pressure. I think we talked about this in our prep meeting, but I think it resonates with everything we've been saying. Use data to make you smarter, not more popular. So use data to be better, use data to be more informed, and use data to help us in our industry go forward.
Thank you. Amy Smith, Kathy Schaffner, Carrie Drinkwater, Mark Simuner, thank you so much for an engaging and important panel. And thanks you on behalf of Cadent. Thank you for joining today and sharing your insights and intelligence with the marketplace. And I'm really pleased. Thank you. So I'm pleased now to bring on board and turn this over to Rick Byspell of Cadent for his fireside chat with Ina Kern of ESPN. Hi, Ina, and I'll wait for Rick to come on, and then I'll drop off. So thank you, everyone, for allowing me this opportunity. It's nice to see you, Ina. And I'm happy to do the conversation with you. Oh, there's Rick. I thought maybe I was going to have a shot. But hey, Rick, congratulations on your little granddaughter. It's such wonderful news. And all you need to do is share your video and your audio, and we'll be off and running. A lot of things going on in sports today, aren't there?
There.
You know, boy,
every day.
the NFL deal's crazy. That's great.
Yes.
But now we have two Rick by spells. There you are.
There you go.
Hey,
Sorry
Rick.
about that, Jack. I got booted off, but I am back. Thank you for your kind wishes and really leading just a great panel overall. We're extremely appreciative of your support.
Well, and congratulations to you and your colleagues at Cadent for hosting this today. It's an important conversation, and I'll leave you to your fireside chat.
Thanks. And Jack, you'll be pleased to know that I'm channeling my inner Jack Myers for this chat. So I am very pleased to welcome the VP Media Strategy and Planning at ESPN, Ina Kern, coming straight off her staycation. Thanks so much for joining us. How are you today?
Amazing, amazing. Beautiful weather outside. How can you not be? This should not be a fireside. This should be a beachside chat.
There is a hint of optimism in the air. And I started my day with Mike Greenberg. I have had Stephen A. Smith, and now I have Ina Kern. That's my
definitely. I do not belong in that list of names.
And now we're in the red zone for today's event. So are you ready to jump in?
So ready, so ready.
So first, congrats to ESPN and your teams on the landmark NFL deal, the NHL deal that recently closed. It's an exciting time at ESPN, no doubt, but it's also an exciting time at your household with the new puppy named Luke.
Yes, a year later, I finally got a COVID puppy.
Awesome. So let's get started. Let's look back on March 11th. Doris Burke and Ryan Ruocco are calling the NBA game on ESPN, Mavs versus Nuggets. We see Mark Cuban look at his mobile phone and, and somewhat incredulous, the NBA season has been suspended. How did you react personally, and how did your teams respond to that very seminal moment in time?
Yeah, thank you. I can't even believe that was, I guess, almost a year ago. Ironically, I had a team offsite that week, and we were actually, this is my fun fact for every single meeting forever moving forward, was that we were the last team of people inside the Metropolitan Museum of Art, literally that Thursday before they shut down. I had invited everybody to New York, and I had people flying back to Seattle. It was like a crazy, crazy time. But when you think about, what my team does, which is essentially plan all of the on-air promotion across all of our networks on ESPN and then obviously broader Disney ecosystem, when there's no sports on, what do we do? What do we fill all of that time with and all those promos with? It was definitely a lesson in working fast, working nimbly. People always say that if you work in sports, you're sort of accustomed to things changing all the time. I think, I look back at that first week, which was actually the following week after sports shut down. And I think about, it was the first time many of us were on Zoom calls like that. We always use technology, but I think actually bringing all these disparate groups together, programming, production, marketing, creative, everybody on a single Zoom call. We still had, 40 people. We hadn't yet discovered breakout rooms then. And ironically, we realized you actually need all those people. And I realized that we would never have gotten them all in a single conference room in past lives had we not had the power of technology. And so I think about, we met hourly, we literally had standing meetings every hour because so much was changing. Every league was canceling. We were trying to figure out what content to put on air, and then how we did promotions, and how we actually created creative in 12 hours that sometimes were already absolutely, not even relevant anymore because it was another change. So it was definitely insanity, but somehow it was controlled chaos, I think, through the power of really staying close to all of our teams. And I think we kept saying is this going to be repeatable? Are we going to always be operating like this? And I think the best thing that has come out of it is we are operating like that, certainly not at the same level of intensity. Thank God we're not meeting every hour anymore, but we are bringing together a true cross-functional team. Our team is divided by kind of sport experts. And we realize that, when you bring all that sports expertise together to really think, well, what does the fan want to see? And what do we need to promote for the sports fan? It just allows a lot of these things to be different and better. And so I would say the best thing that has come out of that dark day was just the incredible collaboration that we have within our team across very different business units, creative, promotion, digital, linear, all together solving problems. So that hasn't ended. That is definitely continuing. And I think I'm even missing that meeting now to be on this call.
Well, we thank you for that. So
Yes.
It certainly seems like you broke down silos in the name of the fan and the
Absolutely.
name of the consumer. But let's stay with the COVID response for a second.
Yes.
Because ESPN has always had a history of great storytelling.
Yes.
And, as an example of that, watched a great documentary yesterday, E60, on Bobby Knight.
Yes,
But
yes.
The Last Dance,
Yes.
a Emmy award-winning production that was in planning for a long time.
Yes.
Yet your plans had to abruptly change. So tell us about that dynamic.
It's great. It's a great question.
And moving forward from the documentary scene.
Yes, thank you. The Last Dance was definitely a career highlight for me to plan because we thankfully had a fairly robust budget. Everyone was so excited about it. It was 2 years in the making, probably a year in planning, because it was a very different kind of project. It was as equally, we wanted people to watch, but we also really wanted to get the brand halo of launching something like that to ESPN. And so it was, brand and tune in and, speaking to entertainment enthusiasts and not just diehard sports fans. So it was a very sort of multi-dimensional approach to planning. And then we had to completely scrap that because our budgets were severely cut. We had to shift the timing. It was, obviously not going to be in July when it had originally, or June when it was originally supposed to launch. It launched in an incredibly accelerated timeline, and substantially less money to promote it. And I think the biggest thing we learned from that, and I really admire the approach we took to planning that, which was we really planned big. We really planned every single channel, earned media, owned media, bought media, partnerships, everything all together. And, we had to scale the plan back, but all of the elements of the plan, all of the smart targeting of the plan, all the way that we really create a creative that spoke to casual fans, female fans, teens, we really broke apart anyone that would have had interest in The Last Dance, from someone my age that had the nostalgia of, living through that era and watching it, to young people who only saw Michael Jordan through, Space Jam or their sneakers, and so we really had a very multi-dimensional approach to audience segments, and that didn't change. And the creative certainly didn't change. And so, yes, we pulled back the plan, but I think what really made it a huge success was because we planned as if we had multiple millions of dollars, even though that was far from the truth about when we actually had to execute. And it was a huge success, obviously.
No question. And I like that line we had at our prep session when you always said, think big.
Yes.
You can always shrink if you have.
Yes,
Not
for
something
sure.
any of us want to do, but if you have to, at least you have the master plan. But I did think your data analysis was right on, because there were so many casual sports fans.
Absolutely.
That tunes into The Last Dance.
And we've reaped the benefits of that. We've reaped the benefits as sort of, COVID persisted, and, not that it's not persisted now, but when we were in the height of kind of really seeing, unfortunately, some audience loss, it was great that we had that established pool of casual fans, because we kept going back to the well. We kept going back as every single sport sort of came back on. We actually retargeted a lot of those fans that we hit through The Last Dance to come back into our ecosystem. And so, we're still reaping the rewards of that initiative a year later.
Well, good. Another area of great heritage is your brand creative.
Yes.
And you've had campaigns where you've had the best athletes in the world, in the DNA of the Bristol headquarters, to the current campaign, There's No Place Like Sports. Again, will we be seeing a continuation of those campaigns? What's the evolution? And how do you look at that brand lens for ESPN?
Absolutely. And really, it's thanks to you guys and to Cadent, when, like many marketers, our budgets were cut fiscal year 21 due to COVID. And I think we had to make the hard decision of where do we place our bets? Do we go with a much more safer precision digital? And then look, I'm not knocking digital. I love digital and I love precision marketing, but I think we knew we had a number one problem. Our number one problem was replacing reach. We lost reach on our networks and we needed to get it back. And there's no better way to replace that lost reach than television. And I shouldn't just, that's a very old school word that I just used, television. I should say video and sight, sound, motion across all platforms. And I think, again, we also talked about, is it more hard hitting tune-in message, or is it really those upper funnel, delicious brand moments that really speak to the heart and really remind people what they love about sports, all that optimism. Life is going to get back to normal. We are going to get back to a beautiful spring day, throwing a ball around, and I think we really felt that burden. Like we needed to reignite that passion of people, of humanity. We really feel that at ESPN, that we serve a higher calling, because sports is an incredible thing that we need everybody to rally around. And so we did really, our dollars were spent behind brand messaging, brand campaigns that allowed people to really feel a sense of optimism back in the world. And thanks to you guys and thanks to Cadent, we were able to really have our dollars stretch incredibly far. It might have only been top 10 DMAs. It might have been only, certainly wasn't national, but we got to the markets that mattered and we got to the people that mattered, and we saw incredible results across all demos. And in fact, one of the best case studies that we talk a lot about internally is that, it's a myth that it's only sort of the 50 plus consumer that's watching television. We saw brand metrics increase for women, for youth, for 18 to 34-year-olds, all through our brand campaigns, all through really the dark days of COVID, where, again, we really were trying to regain that reach. So thank you. Keep doing it for us.
Thank you. Thank you for the nod. We love working with your teams, but it's really interesting that was very much an upper funnel message.
Yes.
It was very much about the art of the business.
Yes.
And creating that emotional connection. Let's transition a little bit to the more science side of this and how you think of audiences, because you have diverse audiences from diehard fans to casual fans to youth to women. And do you do segmentation studies to track them and bring them in? How do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Awesome question. So we do have a sports segmentation where we've identified kind of cohorts of people, and it really helps inform creative. Our segmentation really helps our creative team understand the behaviors that were going to resonate the most. When you're thinking about a college football fan, who might really be in it for the pageantry and the party and the celebration all around kind of that sport versus more of an X's and O's diehard NFL fan. And so all of those insights really fuel our creative process. And then we have we actually have the largest sports database in the world with our own first party proprietary data. And one of the changes we did about 18 months ago is we actually consolidated all of that in a single team. So what my team thinks about is planning at the heart of audiences. And so we actually start with really understanding the audiences we already have, and then the audiences that we may need to go off our platforms to get. We're very lucky that we do rely on our own networks a lot, not only within ESPN, but the broader Disney ecosystem. And when we do go off channel, it is very much about either lookalike audiences or really understanding kind of that core sport consumer that we're going after. And by and large, it is that core 18 to 49-year-old kind of demo. And then we layer on whether it's female, whether it's, youth, whatever kind of secondary metric that we're going after. But all of our kind of marketing planning is kicked off with a very strong understanding of audiences, and both from a consumer insight standpoint, as well as how can we actually find them and target them and bring them into our ecosystem.
I'm going to give you one more question.
Sure.
So I remember
That's
when
it?
we met.
One
when
more?
we met with Jim Tricarico. Time flies on these
I know.
fireside chats, right? As we're approaching noon. We met at Vegas with Jim Tricarico.
Yes. Vegas. Are we ever going to go back there?
It's a lost concept for at the moment, right? But we will be going back there. And you came as prepared to that meeting as we did. You had a spreadsheet and you laid out your entire year, and you basically said to us, come back with your capabilities, show me what you can do. I want to partner with you. So how do you empower media partners moving forward to get the best results for your team and the ESPN brand?
Well, I was lucky to have spent the big part of my career on the sales support side. So in sales development, in marketing, really partnering with salespeople to pitch media companies. So I guess on the other side. And so I feel like I was the recipient of a ton of RFPs. I had to write a ton of decks responding back to all those RFPs. And so when I sort of crossed over to this side, I really did say that I want to be the best client out there because, look, all of our jobs are to make ourselves look smart and make our bosses look smart. And I can only do that if you help me look smart. And so I do feel like, the more transparent, the more I can empower you, the more information I can give you, then the better plans you're going to turn around for us. And so one of the things I really appreciate about you and your company and just the way that you operated, it is very much in the partnership lens. And when money was tight and non-existent, you guys still gave us the level of service that hopefully now money is going to open up and we're going to be in a different, place. And, obviously things are still going to be constrained, but hopefully certainly not as bad as they were a year ago. But I definitely feel that my job is to empower you to do your job back for me. So it's sort of easy. But it is, I did walk in your shoes, I guess I should say, or your marketing partner's shoes.
Yep, there's a lot to be said for knowing what's going on the other side of the desk. So we are very appreciative of your support. We are very appreciative of your participation here today. I hope for nothing but optimism in the sports landscape and society at large. We can look forward to the Masters tomorrow, the NFL draft coming down the road, Major League Baseball, all positive things to look forward to.
We got some hockey coming up.
Hockey too, and we'll be tuning in whenever and wherever we can.
Excellent.
So we thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.
You as well.
Take care.
So now it's my pleasure to introduce the CEO of Cadent, Nick Troiano. And I'm also pleased to say that Nick will have some closing remarks and take us into the end zone for today's Upfront event. Nick? And he will be joining us momentarily. And there he is.
All right.
Nick, it's all yours.
Awesome.
All right.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of myself and everyone at the Cadent family, we want to thank you guys for participating and spending the last 75 minutes with us and with all of these esteemed panelists. And to the panelists, Maureen, Gibbs, Mike, Carrie, Mark, Amy, and Ina, Kathy as well. Thank you. I really thought the conversations were fantastic and insightful. I'd like to comment on a couple things from there, but before I do, I want to also give a special thanks to Jack Myers. Jack, you continue to amaze me. You've done a terrific job for us at Cadent in the past, whether it's live or now it's on Zoom. Thank you for your passionate delivery and for your execution. It's just truly fantastic. And last but not least, thank you to Brand Innovators and Lauren and the team for hosting and helping us host such a great event. So when I think about the last 75 minutes and I took some notes about the overall conversations, I came away with, I think, 3 key themes that I'd like to impress upon all of us about not just specifically to Cadent, but the overall advertising ecosystem. And those 3 themes really start with the one that Jimmy mentioned, flexibility. Whether you're spelling it with a PH or an F, we all know that the TV market is changing and it's changing rapidly. Fragmentation of audiences, devices, platforms, measurement, new paradigms for data and privacy is creating enormous complexity in the TV marketplace. And as this is obviously our upfront, where historically billions and billions of dollars have transacted, in this new environment, we think it's really fundamental that we, Cadent, and the industry provide our marketers and agencies and brands more complementary solutions whether it's across cable, broadcast, addressable, or OTT. I think having that choice, top of funnel, bottom of funnel, brand or performance, is fundamental to the success of the future advanced TV, whether it's across streaming platforms or traditional TV. So from a marketplace and expectation perspective, I think that theme of flexibility is going to be powering a lot of our decisions, and I think the future success of not just ourselves, but our partners. The second key theme I thought was important is really about automation and scale. You know, the Upfront has been so successful historically because it allowed marketers and agencies and supply partners to place and invest significant sums of money. And whether you like the Upfront or not, from its pros and cons, one of the underpinnings of the Upfront was efficiency and scale and automation, because it was easy to buy television across all these different supply partners. It was unified measurement. When we think about the future of TV and the complexity of fragmentation in devices and platforms, from Cadent's perspective, it's also not just about providing solutions and flexibility, it's about providing automation from a suite of technology and platforms. We're excited, Jimmy mentioned earlier, to announce our new platform, Aperture. It's what every agency and all of our clients are using to make decisions across all of our myriad of supply solutions and our data solutions above and below the funnel, or top and bottom of the funnel. And I think that's a key hallmark of success. We heard a lot about how to find audiences across a myriad of different channels. And I think not just for Cadent, but for everyone, that open architected platform of automation is fundamental to see that scale come back to an overall video omni-channel strategy. And last but not least, I think Ina mentioned it, Kathy mentioned it, everyone mentioned it. You know, the future of TV is going to be embedded in partnership with fragmentation and complexity, especially over the next 2 to 5 years. I think it's incumbent upon all of us to continue to reinforce that strategy. I'm extremely proud of all of our partners today on this call, our clients, our partners, our tech vendors, our supply partners. Thank you. You have what made Cadent successful over the past few years. I'm continuing to look forward for your partnership and expansion. But I think partnership, and Kathy mentioned this, or Carrie mentioned this, I think we are at an inflection point, not just in the ad industry, but socially. And I'd be remiss if I didn't highlight, Jack, your efforts in DEI. You've done a fantastic job well before all the social injustices became apparent to us in the last 12 to 24 months. I applaud you for your efforts. DEI is a really important part of what Cadent's doing. We continue to invest and to make better decisions. But at the end of the day, it's about partnership and communication and the ability to exchange free ideas. Whether we're talking about finding audiences above the funnel, below the funnel, across platforms, within walled gardens or not, it's about having flexibility, making the right decision, and having the intent to inform action and to get results. And the only last thing I would leave you with, Jack and team, is I thought there was a poignant question earlier. Are we above the inflection point, equal, or below? I think that same message, Jack, you should ask your next panelist about social injustice and DEI, because it's not just about targeting and talking about the discussion, it's about performance and attribution. So when you think about the ad market complexity and changing and the inflection point we're in, I think we're in the same kind of environment in the social world. And I applaud everyone for your efforts. I'm asking you to continue that and to empower you to continue to make decisions. One last bit of admin information. Thank you for everyone participating. Check your inbox. We have a special token from all of us at Cadent for everyone's participation and joining us today. Thank you, folks. Have a great rest of the week. Be safe and take care.